So it's Father's Day today, and as I was putting the Prentiss #3 Vice together today, one of the things that I was thinking on is all the fathers out there, or the men out there who played a role in my life, and I kind of wanted to just take a little bit of time and sort of put it out there on who influenced me in my life and how. Um, and I started that by actually thinking of someone who's not a father, or who wasn't a father. This gentleman was actually killed due to a drug deal, and I did consider him a role model, at least especially until I knew. Had no idea he was dealing drugs. I was 12 at the time when he passed, or when he was killed. And when we went to his services, the rabbi said, some of the greatest men are never known, and so that kind of, who I believe Abraham Lincoln said that, so that kind of wanted me to go out and at least put the people who are known to me, want to say my thank yous for. So I'll put my dad to last, so I don't want to seem like I'm, jumping him. I kind of want to start with the, with the Garcias. Number one, Mr. Garcia, my friend's father, he's probably in the longest relationship that I know right now. They have been married for as long as I have been alive and beyond. So that really has been a positive example on when you get married, you stick to it and you work through whatever comes up. But with Peter Garcia, my friend, he had children that are at just right out of high school, right around high school, and he has worked his tail off to make sure that his children, had food and did the hardest that he can do, and I just always wish him the best, and he's been. It's good to see him making his progress. So Peter, thank you for being my, inspiration on, sticking to it and doing what's right, for your family. To my cousins, my cousin Aaron, he also had children early on, and he has moved or did whatever he had to do to stay close to his son, and I've always respected that of him. Um, Even my uncle Eugene, who I didn't really have too many interactions with, just he's always been. I've had a few people of encouraging me to lose weight. I've always struggled with weight all my life, and I remember going to his house because he was a personal trainer, and he'd always be giving me this, this exercise lesson that probably costs, people $500 an hour or something, and he's there encouraging me and pushing me and spotting me, and I always respected that, My cousin Micah, he too has just been going around. He and I have actually been kind of, I would say, on even planes. He found someone who's originally not a U.S. citizen, and he's always been. He's older than me, almost by a year or so, and he's always kind of been like my lead and someone who I've looked up to as far as someone whose path that I'm on, but just like a step or two behind. So it's been kind of good to see him, kind of leading the way for me. To my cousin, to my uncle Steve, he's always been kind of like the tough one in the family, always having guns and doing karate and doing all these things. And he's a doctor. He had bandaged me up quite a few times on getting stitches or fixing my hand when I had a broken bone. And always has been there for me, whether for medically or just kind of as that strong role model. My cousin Eric, he's the other one in my family who has just done it right when it comes to you find someone you marry and you stick with him. He absolutely has been through a lot, battling cancer at a young age. He's about 3 years older than I am, and he's been through quite a lot. But he and his wife are still together, so that's been quite a motivation for me to see a positive example in that regards. To the Davenports, Gary, one of my best friend's dad, he is probably one of the least judgmental people I have ever known. He just absolutely will. he accepts you no matter what state you are and who you are. It doesn't matter. I mean, let me rephrase that. He definitely will tell you if like it's really bad. He'll say, "Hey, you need to pay attention for him." So definitely also being on a protective role of me and my friends. Their dad, but he always in great spirits, and it's always a pleasure to go and see him, even after having not seen him for a while. To my friend Nathan, he too is one who has been married for quite a while. Got married real like almost immediately out of college, and who's younger than me by about 3 to 4 years. And he even has been kind of some of my inspiration for. I kind of keep tabs on him, not directly, but through my friend Jason. I'll talk about here in a second. But even through all his struggles, he's still in it and pushing hard and trying to do what's right for his family. My friend Jason and Peter, they have different strengths, and I can say they both have been there for me my entire life. Peter more so. Literally, we were friends at like age of 3 or 4, but Jason has probably since middle school. He's probably been one who I've been a little bit more closer with because his brother Nathan and myself, we would be in his garage taking bikes apart, fixing things. As a matter of fact, Nathan and I, we'd even be taking apart different electronics and trying to fix them and solder them together and put them back together. So that sort of experience early on, I think, has kind of led me to be able to do what I do. And I owe a lot of that to them. Jason also has just been my rock in some of my toughest times. I have to thank Jason for that. And then just also want to mention my uncle Mike, who's actually unfortunately passed away. He was a Marine, and I remember sitting down with him and just listening to him talk about his son. It was actually it wasn't the only thing, but it was definitely a major factor in my decision to join the Navy, just because I remember when he talked about how his son was doing so good in the Navy and his future, that he really lit up. Having been active duty myself, I know I now can kind of relate to some of the things and just the way he approached and gave me kind of a no BS. This is reality, and didn't necessarily. Basically, that sums it up. This is reality. This is what you need to know. Kind of planning for the future, and some of the little tidbits that he would tell me at either the age of 12 or 15 or something immediately, took as soon as I came into the Navy and I started to realize what he was saying. Unfortunately, after A school, I was on my way to visit my mother, who was living out by them in Virginia. I was heading out there for leave, but unfortunately he had passed away 4 or 5 days before. And in addition to him passing, that just kind of sucked because I was in addition to him being family, I was excited to go out there and tell him about everything, but I didn't get that chance. And then just kind of talking about both my grandparents. My grandfather Arnie, both of them have passed away. My grandfather Arnie was an engineer, extremely smart guy. I never really got to know him, but I'm pretty sure that at least I'm being told that some of his work ethics are within me. So I get that tidbit from my uncle too, my uncle Steve. And my grandpa Dave, who I spend more time with, I just remember he was like a human calculator, because you go back then when they didn't have calculators, he could just calculate numbers due to all the practice that he had, just so fast. It was amazing. Just always teasing us, and I just wish we had a little bit more time with him, but that's life. I probably had more time than others, so I have to be grateful for what I had. And then just kind of finishing up with my dad. My dad kind of was into some bad things early on, but about the age of 12, when he got clean and sober, he really became my dad. He allowed me to, even when I was young, to take things apart. Hell, he didn't even let me have my own car until I rebuilt the engine. So all those little small investments have kind of definitely played a role into who I am. As a matter of fact, it's funny that I'm even getting into playing with some of these, restorations and things like that, because he had always pushed me to, when I joined the Navy and it came time to select my job, I gave him the choices, and he was like, yeah, well, be a yeoman, because coming from the desert, he was like, you're going to be in air condition and not have to work underneath the hood, at 200 degrees, 300 degrees underneath the hood, plus when it's 120 degrees outside in the desert. So I was like, yeah, that does sound good. So that's actually why I went to be a yeoman at first, and later got my commission. But one of the things that my dad told me that really has, I think, influenced me in my adult years is he told me a story about when he was in elementary school, and he was going up to play. He was going to play baseball. He was playing baseball little league, and he was at shortstop, and he really liked shortstop because he could catch the ball and he could throw it. But the coach wanted to move him to third base, and he ended up quitting because he was so frustrated because he couldn't throw the ball from third base all the way to first base. So instead of just trying as hard as he quit. And it came to a time where I played 1 year of high school football. It wasn't good, and nothing really to talk about there. But like when we first started in the desert, it's about 120 degrees outside. We're going twice a day. And, I was thinking about quitting. And my dad told me that story. Is like, look, you can be like me and you'll end up quitting everything in your life, or you can stick to it, and you never know. You might go undefeated and go all the way to the championships, and take it all. I ended up sticking with it, even though when I created a list of the goods and the bads, I had probably twice as many bads on staying with the football than I had goods. But I chose to stick with it anyways because of that story. And we did go undefeated, at least within our league, and then lost first round out in the playoffs. But that has really stuck with me. So in my military career, I definitely am one who's big on, I would rather fail than to not try. So thank you, Dad. I love you.